It's Ash from Super Videos, back for another video for Season 8 of The Walking Dead. In this video, we're going to be talking about the Season 8 preview special, and I'm going to kind of give my thoughts on it and recap it a little bit. So I'm just going to go over what I have written down. So I watched the episode, and I basically jotted down a few things that I wanted to discuss. There's about a dozen things that I have written down here, which I'm going to go through. This video might be a little all over the place because I'm just going through the list that I've written down. So last week it was the Season 8 preview special, which was hosted by Chris Hardwick. The guests were the executive producer Scott Gimple, Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Negan, and Lenny James as Morgan. And they were basically discussing what we can expect from Season 8. So the first thing I have written down here is that Season 8 starts off where it left off, at the end of Season 7. So I think it was Jeffrey Dean Morgan who said that we're going to pick up exactly where we left off in Season 7. So that kind of eliminates any probability that we're going to have some sort of time skip. Obviously, there could be some sort of dream sequence related to the old man Rick scene, but in terms of the actual plot, it's going to pick up exactly where it left off, which I am very excited for, because I didn't want there to be any kind of gap between where we left off and what we pick up from Season 8, because I wanted to know exactly what happens right after this war is kick-started. So that was great. The second thing is that Lenny James discussed something that was in the trailer. If you remember, there's a part in the trailer where Morgan says, "I don't die." And Lenny James, who obviously plays Morgan, discussed that and said anyone who saw that believes that that means that Morgan is gonna die and everything. So, you know, he kind of hinted at the possibility that might actually happen. As much as I really think that will happen and that Morgan will die in Season 8, I think if this line is a hint for that, it's a bit predictable. So I hope that they didn't just put that in there as a hint of Morgan's death. I hope there's something more to what he said than what first meets the eyes. So I hope it's a bit more than that, just hinting at Morgan dying. But, you know, Lenny James did discuss it a little bit, which was very interesting to me. Obviously, he couldn't say much, but from what he did tell us, it did kind of hint that that might be related to Morgan's fate. Next thing is that Scott Gimple said there will be hints of past episodes in Season 8, but more specifically in Season 8, Episode 1, in the 100th episode, which we as fans kind of knew was coming. But what he said, which was very interesting, was that we will see echoes of the past. So, not necessarily hints, but echoes of the past. So, maybe storylines or mini storylines that echo past plots or storylines, which is also a very interesting subject. Next, they obviously showed some cast interviews as well. So, not only interviewing the people who were guests, but also showing clips of interviews with other casts. So there was one clip which they interviewed Ilana Masterson, and Ilana Masterson obviously plays Tara. She said that the season is going to start pretty quickly and doesn't stop for a little while. And I think that's basically referring to the action component of it. That basically goes with what Scott Gimple said before and also in this interview itself, which was that the first couple episodes are going to be very action-packed and very kinetic. So that's basically related to what Ilana Masterson is saying here, and it gets me very excited that at least the first few episodes are going to be very action-packed and they're going to have a lot of content to them. Next thing I have written down is related to the old man Rick. So Scott Gimple said that it's definitely not Rick waking up from the coma. So he just came out and said that that's not true. So we can put that theory to bed now. Obviously, there was no substance to the theory anyway, but for those who still believe that that might be the case, that's not going to be the case anymore. But he said that he encourages the guess that it might be related to the comic storyline that's going to happen after the war. He didn't say that it's true or false, but he said he encourages it. So definitely something very interesting. I think if you watch what he said and how he said it, he makes it sound like there is a truth to it. The next thing that I have written here, which Scott Gimple said, which gets me very excited, I'm very happy about this. He says that the All Out War storyline from the comics does not support bottle episodes. So that's great news, because one of the main aspects that fans were disappointed with for season 7 was the bottle episodes, and how certain episodes were just concentrated on a couple characters and they didn't involve too much in terms of story. So it's very good news that Scott Gimple came out and said that All Out War will not have any kind of bottle episodes. So we can expect there to be no bottle episodes for season 8, at least the first half, for the parts that are related to the All Out War story arc. We still don't know if All Out War is going to be one half or two halves, but as many episodes that All Out War is going to cover, those episodes are not going to have any bottle episodes, which is very cool. They discussed a little about what we can expect for Carol. Gimple says that there will be some prime Carol moments. Carol during war is very interesting, he says. That's very cool, very interesting, and I'm very excited to see Carol during the war. Obviously, we've seen badass Carol before, but seeing Carol in a war like setting like this, it's going to be very interesting. He also says that we may see Carol-centric episodes in the future. So, bottle episodes just for Carol. Obviously not season 8. He dismissed that idea pretty quickly. He said that we won't see any Carol-centric bottle episodes in season 8 for All Out War, but afterwards we may. So very cool, very exciting as well. I hope that the Carol-centric bottle episodes are not like regular bottle episodes and they have a bit of substance to them. Next, Gimple says that the scene between Negan and Father Gabriel, which we saw in the trailer, will facilitate telling Negan's backstory. He says that it's a bit of a confessional booth. That's actually very interesting, and it raises a lot of questions regarding how they're going to adapt the Negan backstory into the TV show. So obviously, the way he says it, it feels like Father Gabriel and Negan are going to be in the same room, and because Negan is going to find out that Gabriel is a priest, he's going to kind of come out and give his story as a person would when they're in a confessional booth. So very interesting. I had some different ideas about how they might do that. If you watched my previous videos, you know how I thought that was going to go and how I wanted that to go. But they have a bit of a different idea about how they're going to approach that. I gotta say, I do think that it's an interesting idea. I think if they pull it off, it might be one of the best ways that they could have gone for in order to bring Negan's backstory into the TV show. So I know this video is running long, but there's like 4 or 5 more points that I want to go over. Then there's another clip where Josh McDermott is doing an interview and he hints that Eugene may change and adapt again. Obviously, Eugene is known to adapt and change, but Josh McDermott says that we might not have seen the last of Eugene's change and his adaptation. He says that he will not compromise his beliefs all the time, which means that there might come a point where Negan does something or says something that pushes Eugene to the edge, and he says enough is enough and basically change and adapt again and maybe redeem himself. Next point I have, Jeffrey Dean Morgan says that we will find out very early on in season 8 that he is not happy about what has just happened. He brings up the fact that there's a lot of different things coming at him, from seeing Maggie alive, to seeing the kingdom there, to seeing Hilltop there, to seeing Shiva there, to everything like that. And it's something that he's not prepared for. So, we're gonna see very early on that Negan is not happy, and I'm very excited to see that. We saw a little bit of it at the end of 7/16, right before he said we're going to war, but I'm very interested and excited to see more of that. But another thing that was interesting is that he repeatedly brought up the fact that the kingdom had a tiger. So we might see something with Negan in season 8 regarding him seeing the tiger, which I'm also very excited for. Next point I have here, Gimpo says that other conflict may rise between the scavengers, with Jadis being the leader, and the saviors with Negan. So that's very interesting, and I did kind of speculate that there might be some kind of tension or conflict between those two communities, and it seems like there is some sort of truth to that, and we might actually see that in season 8, which is very interesting. So next, Gimple says that Maggie's baby will not be born in season 8. So that's one major fact that we can grab from season 8. Maggie's baby will not be born in season 8. And the last point I have here is that Lenny James says there will be a big one-on-one fight between Morgan and another character. And from the trailer, we do know what that fight is going to be. It's going to be between Morgan and Jesus. And if you watched my video talking about why Morgan and Jesus might be fighting, you may have an idea about what that might look like. Lenny James also went out and said that fight will help Morgan get unstuck. Obviously, if you remember in 7:16, Morgan tells Ezekiel that he's stuck, and he kind of explains what he meant by that in the interview that he did in the previous special. He basically said that it means that he doesn't know whether to stand still, go back, and do what he was doing before, or go forward and start killing again. So he's kind of stuck from that perspective. But he said that the fight between Morgan and this other character, which we're kind of speculating will be Jesus, will help him get unstuck. So maybe whatever happens between Morgan and Jesus will put some sense into Morgan and push him away from being cray-cray, and a little bit towards the other side from all life is precious as well. And maybe finally from this fight or this conflict, he will find his balance, which is going to be very exciting. That's it for this video. I know it was very long, but I just wanted to give my full thoughts on this preview special and kind of give a recap of it as well. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.